Hello. Welcome to another edition of Fuck, I Gotta Get Gas. Damn it. Alright, well, I totally forgot I was running on empty when I left for work today, and I just squeezed on by, hit the 5 miles left mark, and I was like, I made it to work. That's all that matters. You know what I find interesting is how differently I look at the end of each day and the beginning of each day. You can tell what kind of day I had, I think. Today sucked. Today fucking sucked. I was worried about a conversation or a call I had today. Turns out the call was fine. It wasn't fine, but it was productive. Not you fucking suck type of deal, which I didn't expect, but yeah, so I'm just gonna get this real quick, guys. I will be back. All right, we're back. Low tire pressure, but they look fine. So I'm gonna say they're fine. I'm not gonna listen to my goddamn car. I'm gonna just look at my tires and look and see that they're fine. I had a first here. For the first time in my life, I don't know if it was because I'm tired or it was because I was talking to you guys, I pulled up to the gas station with my tank on the wrong side of the car. So I pull up. I had to look like an idiot and do a Yui. Stupid. Seltzer root beer, because I'm a hipster and I don't want to drink Pepsi at the moment. All right, guys. Well, it's been a hell of a Thursday. It was so busy I didn't even get to upload the morning one. I'm gonna upload that here in just a few once I get home. It is got to work at 7 o'clock. Left at 6:30. It's what, 11 hour or so day. 11 and a half hour. And you wanna know something? I didn't get a damn thing done. But you know what? That's okay. Because if you can get everything done in a day, then your position can get spread out amongst everyone else. You know, you gotta have a job where you can't get it done. If you can get your job totally done within the day, if you leave work and say, man, I got nothing else to do, I might as well go home, then there's no job security in that position. You gotta have so much work, you can't possibly get it done, and you just basically have to end up strategically not doing shit and pushing it off, and eventually getting everything done, you know, at a certain point. But if you are sitting at your desk at 4 o'clock with nothing to do for the last hour, man, I'd start saving money, because as soon as the budget starts tightening, dude, everything you do can hand it to someone else. Because you ain't the only guy with that hour that's open, and they know it. All right. You need a job that you work all day, and you still got shit to do at the end of the day. Because if you got shit to do at the end of the day, it means you got work for tomorrow. It means you got job security. Made no damn sense. But I really need a cigarette, and I just dropped mine on the fucking interstate on accident. Did not mean to. Yeah. I'm all harebrained right now, so let's just turn on the good old NPR there, and I'm gonna see. Oh fuck, I can't speak right now. I need to see how we're doing.
As a former employee makes explosive allegations of sexual harassment against women.
Explosive.
A former employee claims she was sexually harassed and Uber management didn't do anything about it. In fact, she says she was ultimately criticized for reporting the problem.
But hers wasn't the only complaint. The company's been forced to fire more than 20 people after uncovering 215 other allegations of harassment.
Facing a series of scandals, Uber sees another executive hit the door.
Announced the departure of another executive. New trouble for the CEO of Uber, Travis Kalanick, is apologizing for a video showing him berating one of his own drivers. He now admits he needs leadership help.
Leadership help?
Now to a major shakeup at Uber to tell you about the CEO and founder of the ride-sharing service. He's out of a job this afternoon. Travis Kalanick
is resigning as CEO.
Now the big question,
who should replace him.
After being plagued by scandals, Uber is trying to get back on track with a new CEO.
Well, Uber's new CEO is wasting no time. Dara Khosrowshahi says the ride-hailing company could go public in as soon as 18 months.
They did, and I bought stock.
Well, start your engines. Uber pricing its IPO at $45 a share. This implies a market valuation of about $82.4 billion. It's expected to be the largest IPO of 2019 and the biggest since Alibaba's $25 billion debut in 2014.
Yeah. I should not have bought the stock. I
Uber
stand
threw a
behind my
staggering
stock.
amount of money in the second quarter. The rideshare company said it lost $5.2 billion.
$5.2 billion.
$5.2 billion. Its biggest quarterly loss ever.
Mike, the last time we talked, Uber had pushed out its founder and CEO, Travis Kalanick, very publicly. They vowed to change this kind of wayward, problematic corporate culture, which you spent a lot of time chronicling. They had a huge IPO that valued the company at the scale of a small country. All of that suggested that a corner had been turned for Uber. So how is it possible that just a few days ago, the company lost $5 billion?
But it's funny, I think the thing that folks don't really realize is that they have never been a profitable company in the 10 years that they've existed. From day one, they've been bleeding money, and that's just sort of the business model that they've been predicated on.
So Uber has never once made a profit over the last decade.
That's right.
I wonder if you could explain how that's possible.
I think from the beginning, Travis Kalanick had this idea that is pretty common in the Valley, which is like, look, we can think about profits at some point, but how can I get as many bodies in seats as possible? The way he used to explain it is you have to kickstart the flywheel in each city. So he sends a strike team of employees into each city, floods Craigslist with ads for free rides, floods people into, basically the town square, handing out coupons to drive or ride with Uber, and get as many bodies in the backs of seats as possible.
Yep.
And then take that and replicate it, over and over. Do that long enough for a long enough period of time and take over as many cities as possible. And then eventually you apparently can start making money off of that, provided that there are no actual competitors to your business.
How exactly is it supposed to pay off?
The thesis put forth by Travis was once you get to the tipping point in any given city that Uber is part of your daily life, then eventually they get to a point where maybe they can hike the rates, maybe they can lower the payment for drivers, but it doesn't matter because people are hooked and people are going to keep using it because it's part of their daily lives.
So the plan at the beginning was spend whatever money Uber needed to spend to get people hooked on Uber, make it an essential part of people's lives. And at some point, the business becomes so big, so many people use it, that a profit will just inevitably come.
The maxim he liked to use internally was transportation as reliable as running water. Make it ubiquitous, make Uber an inevitability in every city, in every country around the world, and then you can stop burning money to make it work.
And how unusual was that model? Burn money, build saturation, hope for a profit.
I mean, Facebook's actually a good example of that. They burned a lot of money with no advertising for a very long time. The other one that is a pretty classic case is Amazon. From the beginning of that business, Jeff Bezos actually trained Wall Street to allow Amazon to lose money because they were often losing money every quarter or maybe break even at best. And his whole thing was, look, we need to spend money to make money. We need to get as many people using our site as possible. And that habituates them into making us part of their everyday lives. And clearly that theory was right. So investors have been used to this type of business model for a long time, and they were happy to pour money into Uber from the very beginning. And they did in a really huge way, to the tune of, billions.
And what is Uber doing with all of these billions of dollars that investors are handing over?
So let's break it down to like the granular level. Imagine that a ride costs $10, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uber might pay $2 or $3 out of that ride just to make it cheaper for a rider.
Mm-hmm.
So you or I might pay like $7 to get somewhere, where in reality it costs $10. 30% of that goes to the driver. So at the end of the day, Uber ends up making like $2 or $3 on the ride, but count all their overhead and maybe they lose $1 or $2 on the ride. Now
That's
multiply
terrible,
that
not even
by
close to reality.
millions of rides per day in each city across, the United States, and then move out to the United States, and then there's millions more in other cities outwards. So, in theory, they might be losing millions of dollars in each city every single day.
Wow.
And Travis's idea was, it doesn't matter,
like
this
that's
is the cost
bullshit.
of doing business, and so this is how we need to push through.
So Uber's not just subsidizing each ride. They are having to pay in all these other ways around the world just to keep on growing and growing into new markets beyond the US. And the idea, right, is that this will still someday pay off and turn to profit.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, so they're getting a foothold into all these markets in cities across the world. Did it seem like it was all going according to plan, that people were starting to become hooked on Uber in the way that its founders had expected?
Yeah, I mean, if you think back to 2015, 2016, Uber was on top of the world.
Uber, okay? Doing a great job, right? We all like Uber. Here's the thing. Every decade, there's a company that comes along that sort of changes everything. It all started as a ride-sharing app, and it's exploded into a global force disrupting the entire transportation industry.
The ride-sharing company's most recent funding round giving Uber a valuation of, get this, $68 billion. Now that brings
They were open in almost every continent. They were actually crushing their competition. Lyft was on its deathbed, basically, trying to get people to use the service, but it seemed like Uber really was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2017 happened.
In the past year, the company has faced crisis after crisis, including accusations of stealing self-driving technology from Google and protests by drivers.
Hashtag delete Uber. People around the world are deleting their Uber app because of Uber's link with President Trump. But today, the CEO of Uber is out. It was an investor revolt that led Travis Kalanick to resign after months of turmoil. Just a
lot of this stuff cemented the idea in people's heads that Uber is this gross, bro-tastic company and I shouldn't use the product.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that people didn't really quite realize is that actually really affected their business. Folks started actually using Lyft as a way to say, I don't use Uber. It brought it back from the brink and sort of like revived this competitor. It's this war that ultimately never ends for them and keeps kicking the idea of profitability further and further down the line, just because they're always competing and there's always someone new popping up ready to make you spend more money.
So what does Uber have to do to adjust to this new problematic environment?
So Uber's answer is to spread into a bunch more money-losing businesses. They started moving into Uber Eats, their food delivery service. They bought this company called Jump, which creates e-bikes and scooters in a bunch of different cities, and decided to start replicating that all over the place. They basically took the thesis that we need to spend money to make money in one category and put that into all these different lines of business to expand on the idea that we're not just a ride-hailing company, we are a transportation platform. And we want Uber to be every part of your life, from commuting to work to getting McDonald's delivered to your house at the end of the day.
And the idea within this platform is still to subsidize each of these experiences.
Yeah, I mean, again, getting back into that cycle of we need to grow as fast as possible, and that means giving freebies away to customers, as well as like getting drivers to deliver as many pieces of food as possible. And I just read a report the other day that they probably aren't going to expect profitability from Uber Eats for a very long time, probably years out.
Good reporting. No conjecture at all.
We'll be right back.
The Daily is reporting.
First of all, as an Uber driver who's talked to, the people who drives, not an Uber driver, sorry. As an Uber rider who talks to the drivers, I always ask, how much did you make from this ride, And they're like, oh, the ride costs 14, I'll make 12, or I'll make 11. This whole subsidizing of rides, so they're first of all, so they're undercutting the price, so they're advertising a lower price than the driver is seeing. Is that what they just tried to say on NPR? So they're advertising a lower price to the consumer, showing a larger price to the driver, making up the difference, and yet taking a piece of that. I don't understand that at all. From my understanding and doing the little research I have on Uber, it's liability issues, the corporate structure that they're having to deal with, and it's also their investments in self-driving technology is a big weight on them. They are spending a lot of money trying to get into the self-driving space. Hell, they're trying to come up with helicopters for inner cities. There's a lot I don't like about that reporting, and it seems very, very one-sided, at the very least, if not misinformed.
I spoke with my colleague, business reporter Mike Isaac, about what's happened to Uber. Mike, so let's talk about why this business model hasn't worked for Uber. Because, as you said earlier, this theoretically can work. It has worked for Amazon, for Facebook. So what is so uniquely non-functional about it for Uber?
The first 10 years of Amazon's business, they spent building out warehouses. They spent sort of building new infrastructure and things that can't be easily replicated by a bunch of their competitors. Mm-hmm. The first 10 years of Uber's business were just spent growing and creating this network, but as it turns out, you can catch a ride from anyone and not really care much about who you're getting it from. Mm. So whereas Amazon, I'm locked in. I have my Prime subscription. I'm not going to go to Walmart.com or Jet or whatever because Amazon's hooked into my life. Mm-hmm. But Uber, I could give or take, depending on what service I feel most comfortable riding with.
So Mike, you're saying it's comparatively quite easy to compete with Uber in a way that it's not with a company like Amazon.
What?
And yet I wonder, why did it take Uber this long to recognize this problem?
I mean, it seems obvious in retrospect, right?
Right.
No, it's not.
To think back to 2010, 2011, but Uber really was the only game in town back then. Like, all these competitors didn't really exist. They were able to raise billions of dollars. Travis would sort of block investors from investing in competing companies, and it seemed like they were remaking the whole economy, right? I mean, I remember when the idea of a gig worker was just totally novel and new, and they were the ones offering it to folks, and this was going to upend how people were working. Mm-hmm. And I think the idea that this business is not that defensible really came on quickly, especially when Uber was having just a nightmare 2017, and now they've had to really shift a lot of the assumptions that they had early on that Uber was going to be the only company to go to. Right. And so that's been a tough shift for them. They've really had to change very quickly in a very short amount of time.
They're fucking...
I have to imagine at this point, as Uber is posting billions of dollars in losses in a single quarter, that those original investors in the company who bet on this dominant strategy that has not yet come to fruition are very unhappy.
No, I think they're actually pretty happy.
Why?
Everyone who got in early on Uber made a killing. There was one guy who parked $5,000 in the company early on, and that turned into a $20 million investment for him. And he did absolutely nothing.
Wow.
Anyone who got their money in on the ground floor is very happy with how things turned out.
I mean, how exactly is that possible if the company has never made any money?
anyone who bought shares in Uber early on, all they had to do was basically spot the idea and sit on their investment for years. So by the time you get to an initial public offering, which is when people like you and me can actually buy shares of this company, those early investors can sell their shares at an insane profit. The company's worth billions of dollars. All of the gains that they realized have occurred in the 10 years that they were a private company. Whereas you and I are buying shares on day one and just hoping that that company value continues to go up in the future. And
every
on day
fucking
one
company
of
in the
Uber's
world.
IPO, the value has only continued to plummet, and anyone who bought shares on the first day have only lost money, essentially. So I think Uber has been a wonderful business for venture capitalists because it made them a ton of money early on. I wonder if Uber is a wonderful business for normal people who want it to be profitable one day.
So, Mike, what happens now? Uber can't continue hemorrhaging billions of dollars forever. And at this point, a decade is starting to feel kind of like forever.
Well, you know, they're doing a lot of different little short-term things right now to try and save money, doing some layoffs in their marketing department, cutting back on the birthday balloons that they give to employees each anniversary, which is going to save them like $200,000 a year.
$200,000 on employee balloons.
Yeah, that's a big expense for them. But I think the bigger questions of how long are we going to stay in this business? Are scooters, you know, something we can actually make money from? I think probably they have maybe 1 or 2 years of time before, you know, the stock really starts taking a hit. And plus, the bank account doesn't last forever. They only have X amount of dollars of cash on hand. So I imagine within the next 2 years, they have to really decide what is core to our business and what can we continue doing without losing money that people will actually use and make us a viable business in the long term.
Okay, so let's say Uber doesn't figure out how to make a profit before it runs out of money. And perhaps the company stops operating. What will Uber's effect have been on all of our lives?
I think the sort of ironic point here is that Uber pioneered a category like ride sharing and delivery and on-demand services. And that's, you know, you have to give them a lot of credit for that, but that can exist in a world without Uber. I think on-demand services are always going to be here, whether Uber figures out its business model or not. I think another thing is in the past 10 years of drivers flooding into cities and the way Uber has changed how people get around, it really has fundamentally changed how cities operate now. They've created entire new pickup zones in airports for people to get Ubers. Public transportation funding isn't what it was because ridership might be down in certain cities, and people that can't afford to take Ubers may not be having the greatest experience on a bus or a subway now just because of how that's affected it. I think Uber will have this lasting impact on cities and how we get around, whether it continues to exist or not. And I don't know if that's always a positive thing, but I think it's going to affect us for a pretty long time to come in ways we haven't even really thought about.
So in the end, Mike, Uber accomplishes something pretty extraordinary. It creates a new industry. It changes how millions of Americans travel, how cities, as you just said, think about transportation. It challenges and undermines this iconic American industry of taxi cabs. In many ways, it creates the gig economy. It does all of that, but it just never builds a profitable business. And that may mean it doesn't operate as that business.
I mean, whether you think that's a tragedy or a comedy or whatever, I think that's just pretty emblematic of how businesses work out here. In Silicon Valley, there have been more startups that have been more transformative on how the world operates in the past 10 years than I can really even think to remember. And a lot of them continue to burn cash and don't make money on the public markets and don't plan to, and continue selling that idea to people that this business doesn't have to make money right away. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. Turns out whether your company actually makes money or not, it can still end up affecting billions of people around the world.
Mike, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Michael Barbaro is a fuck. First of all, one thing I want to say is this dude, not Michael Barbaro, but his guest, says a line of conjecture, and then they break it up with these little thoughtful interludes. Oh, I'm thinking, I'm pondering. Go fuck yourself. It's first of all, that's them just taking a break to jerk themselves off. I've never heard such a hit piece on a company before. A company's losing money, especially close to an IPO, is a very, very common thing. The reason they have an initial public offering is to get more money. Duh. It's for them to expand. This, and I kind of want to me, that felt like liberal moral outrage hit piece on a company. And it goes, and I think one of the main reasons is that shit happened in 2017 where there was some sexual harassment stuff, and they basically, they're mad that the company didn't go under because of that. And they can't, a company shouldn't be able to survive with these kind of things. They view it as that bro company. What I can say is, there was a lot in that piece. There was a hell of a lot in that piece. And full disclosure, I do have $300, a whole $300 in that company, and that's it. So they tried to do this idiot tried to compare, talk about why Amazon's successful, because Amazon's a part of my life in a different way than how Uber is a part of my life. I'm more wrapped up in Amazon. First of all, there is nothing that separates Amazon and Walmart in these spaces. It's just what they offer. Prime, yeah, the subscription service is one thing. They're saying that, so are they basing it down to where Uber doesn't have a subscription for rides? You don't get a subscription on rides. You have Uber and Lyft. Amazon has Whole Foods. Amazon has Walmart, Sears is going down. So many other actual competitions, small mom and pop stores, your local grocery store, your local clothing store. Amazon is in no way in a better position, just as is, just statically in this better position. It's because Amazon offers Prime, offers free next day delivery, sometimes same day delivery. It's because Amazon offers a package that not other people can, They don't have any real competitors in the space. Walmart and Target are entering that, and as NPR's Marketplace showed last week, if I'm not mistaken, Walmart's great numbers were due to its online space, because they've been investing in their online ordering, online and deliveries. That was, I think it was a 30% increase, or that was 30% of their profit was from online, which was a huge increase. Now that Amazon is actually being taken to task in its space, we are seeing these numbers flatten out amongst competition. Same thing with Target. Uber has one competitor, a single competitor, and it's Lyft. And Lyft is getting its ass kicked. I'm trying to think now, because they covered so damn much in that little segment. I've never ever heard so much conjecture. Another thing was trying to show like their hand was, oh, these big multi-millionaires, were able to get in on the ground floor, and when the little normal guys are able to get in, it's just slim pickings. It's great for the 1%, bad for the normal guy. another little hit piece on capitalism in general there, actually. I'm not happy with that. This was the New York Times. New York Times, if there's anything, so this is a New York Times hosted show on NPR. If anything, this should just, be another nail in their goddamn coffin. This guy has an axe to grind against Uber. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that it's because there was a CEO, a very successful CEO, started a company from scratch, unlike this asshole who's just reporting on it. Very successful, didn't like the guy, didn't like his success. And this is what happens when unsuccessful people speak to successful people. That's kind of how I see it. I do have stock in Uber. I have 300. I bought like 5 stocks. At $45. It has gone down. I think it was in the upper 30s. So instead of trying to turn a quick profit, it's going to be a long-term investment. It looks like, but this is the way it's going. Uber is investing in autonomous driving, which they did not even mention in this at all. One of their major investments is autonomous driving. And I always think, and me and Chris had talked about this on the podcast, well, it's your opinion, man. We talked about all about Uber's IPO on the podcast, and just imagine if you have an electric car and you plop it down in every town in America. Just each little town drop an electric autonomous vehicle. Living in small towns, small cities, if you don't have a car, you're fucked. You ain't going nowhere that you can't walk unless you got some good friends who, that are willing to drive you around. But imagine, just imagine if you have a safety net like that. How often would that be used? People living on, if you are poor in a small community, your one car goes down, you can't afford to fix it. I gotta get to work tomorrow. What do? I'll order that Uber. And you just plop it down in each city, have it charge on a charging pad. It goes, picks people up, takes them where they're going, goes back, sits on the charging pad until its batteries are good, then takes the next person somewhere. That to me is the future of small town living. Or at least it'll be more of a staple in it. And yeah, so I felt like there was an underlying axe to grind in that conversation there. So that was really annoying to me. NPR only gives bad news when it comes to companies, businesses. They only report what's bad. They never talk about good. One guy got into the ground floor in Uber, just $5,000, made 20 mil. Holy shit. Not too bad, man.
Owatonna police say it's not clear if the alleged assault victim was in the vehicle. Matt Sepik, NPR News.
Minnesota Public School test scores show math proficiency continues to decline, while achievement gaps in reading skills remain the same. The number of students considered proficient in math fell for the 4th year in a row. According to newly released data from the Minnesota Department of Education, only 54% of students met or exceeded those standards during the most recent school year. 4 years earlier, that figure was close to 60%. Reading scores are higher and have remained relatively steady. Just over 58% of students met state standards for reading proficiency last year. The state continues to struggle with persistent gaps in achievement among various student groups. Graduation rates improved overall for students. Pacific Islander and Black students saw the most dramatic gains at almost 13% and 3% respectively. In the Twin Cities, the skies are clear. Temperature is 69 degrees. This is NPR News. It's 7:06.
Here's another little rant here. The way NPR has been reporting, they've been reporting about these achievement gaps. This is the first time that they've actually gave empirical statistics based on the percent of people achieving. In the end, they aren't basing. In the majority of their stories, they're not. My phone died. Thing I was saying is, NPR always talks about achievement gaps in schools. They don't talk about how kids are generally doing. It's always how black kids are doing compared to white kids and how we need to lower that gap. That's the issue I have with them there. Guys, this has been another episode of the Shellen Show. Very much appreciate you following me on my way home from work. I have a lady just standing right behind my car, and I'm not sure why. So I'm going to see what's going on with this lady. Is she? Okay. All right, goodbye. Welcome to my home. This is an odd episode. So, there was an issue right after I ended the video. A lady, my neighbor, knocked on my door. Someone was dead in a car in my parking lot. And they wanted me to look at it. And we had to call the police. And it's an unfortunate thing. So just kind of wanted to give context because I just realized that like the last like 20 seconds of that video is me watching this girl like freak out right behind my car. It was two girls and they were like, I thought they were arguing. I thought I hit their car or something. I was like, did I just hit her car? Because they didn't know what to do because they just found a body in a car. So yeah. That's how that day ended there. That's how that video ended. Ended up having to hang around for about an hour and a half. After working 11 and a half hours, I got to then stand in my parking lot for about an hour and a half, waiting for the police to show up and then talking to them and basically just giving our statements and things like that. So it's a sad thing, unfortunately. A guy died in his car, so yeah. All right, well, guys, there's going to be a new show tomorrow morning. I am waking up bright and early because although I did not have to work today, today's Monday, it doesn't mean that work didn't stop or work didn't stop accumulating. So I'm uploading this now, and we'll have a fresh show coming at you tomorrow there. Thanks.